I wanted to take a moment and talk about the religion of Islam. And it's a scary fact that Islam is actually growing substantially right now as we speak.
Yeah, it shows that you and your religion aren't doing a good job.
And in 2022, over half the converts to Islam were former Christians, which tells me
to change your channel to Preaching Islam, think of the subscriber counts you could get.
We need to talk about this subject more and not less.
Oh, well, I guess you could do that, Matt. I guess you'll have to employ the usual techniques of twisting the truth, not researching, and downright lying. No change there, then.
And we need to actually deal with Islam at its very foundation. And so I think that Christians would not be converting to Islam if they knew what Islam actually taught and who the founder of Islam even was.
And I guess that young earth creationists wouldn't be young earth creationists if they really understood what science says about the creation of the universe, about abiogenesis, and about evolution. But let's not go there, Matt.
Now, Muhammad, the man who founded Islam, married a 6-year-old girl named Aisha.
Well, so far your research is stunning. I suggest you stop there before you start to look like an idiot.
And he consummated the marriage when she was 9 years old.
So you want to push ahead with this, do you, Matt? Okay, go ahead.
When you bring this up to Muslims, they will say that pedophilia was simply normal back then.
It wasn't pedophilia then. It was regarded as the norm. And in the biblical lands, girls tended to get married as soon as they hit puberty. And it's believed that Mary, mother of the baby Jesus, was about 13 or 14 years old when she gave birth.
But I'm sorry, pedophilia has never been normal. It has always been condemned by societies. And it will always be condemned by society, Christian and non-Christian, because it's just a reprehensible act.
The thing is, Matt, you're so small-minded. The only thing you can consider is something that's right in front of your nose. Here in the UK, the age of consent is 16. However, people in Bahrain may think we're terrible because their age of consent is 21. And in Angola, though, it's only 12 years old. Things change over time. Back in 1275, here in England, marriageable age was 12 years old. In the early history of the United States, things were quite different as well. Delaware, for instance, had an age of consent set at 10 years old until 1871, when they lowered it to 7 years old. And before you say, yes, but that was way back then, in the United States there are 2 states, Hawaii and Kansas, which have a minimum age of 15 for marriage, and Alaska with a minimum age of 14. That's with the consent of parents or legal guardians, a court clerk or judge, or if the minor is emancipated. How about that for your good Christian values, eh?
And so for them to try and justify it by saying, well, so many people were pedophiles back then, and it was normal back then, so therefore Muhammad being a pedophile is okay, that's just blatantly false, and that is a weak argument.
So what do you have to say about the historic young ages of consent in the United States then, Matt? Are you just going to say, well, lots of people were doing it, it was acceptable then? Because that would be a weak argument, wouldn't it, Matt?
So yes, Muhammad was a pedophile. Not only did he molest Aisha and choose to marry her when she was only 9 years old, he also molested young boys by giving them French kisses.
Big it up, Matt. Make it sound as bad as you possibly can. The twisting and the lies. Muhammad lived in a desert region. It was not unknown for parents to allow their young children to suck on their tongues for the moisture. Also, in the collection of Hadiths, Musnad Ahmad 16245, Muawiyah said, I saw the Prophet sucking on the tongue or the lips of Al-Hassan, son of Ali. May the prayers of Allah be upon him. For no tongue or lips that the Prophet sucked on will be tormented by hellfire. Basically, that was considered a miracle. Now, you may knock it and say, what load of rubbish. But then I could say that about an awful lot of things in your dusty old book called the Bible.
So people need to be aware that this is what the founder of Islam was all about. He was not some great moral person. And in the Quran, it states that Muhammad is an exalted standard of character and a beautiful pattern of conduct.
So you're saying that we can't just trust what's written in the Quran as true, and yet you are asking us to just trust what is written in your Bible is true.
Not only did Muhammad molest little children, but he also would make elderly women cry for fun.
Holy underwear! He's making old women cry?
Gentlemen, we must do something about this immediately! Immediately! Harumph, 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 harumph! I didn't get a harumph out of that guy.
Give the governor harumph. Harumph!
You watch your ass.
In fact, an elderly woman came to him once and asked him to pray to Allah on her behalf and to intercede for her so that she would be able to go to heaven someday. And Muhammad sent her away and told her that there would be no elderly ladies welcomed in heaven. And she went away crying, and Muhammad, it's recorded that he thought it was the funniest thing ever. He thought it was funny to bully old women and to make them cry.
So lies and misrepresentation, Matt. The old woman asked Muhammad for a dua, a supplication, so that she could go to heaven. And the Prophet replied, "Did you not hear it? Old women cannot go to heaven." The old lady became upset at this. Then the Prophet said, smiling, "Did you not read the verse?" And this is Al-Baqarah 56, 35-37. "We have created companions of special creation and made them virgin, pure and beloved, equal in age." Then, in a pleasant manner, he explained to the old lady that old women would go to heaven as young girls, and thus he cheered her up. And before you jump on that, my understanding from my research is that women enter heaven at about the age of 33. By all means, Matt, feel free to disagree with Islam, but don't tell lies.
Muhammad would also encourage his followers to drink camel urine, and that somehow that was going to be a virtuous thing. I mean, this is just crazy stuff. He would encourage them to drink camel urine, camel milk.
You could consider it crazy stuff, Matt, these religious claims. Like, for instance, Jewish people not eating pork because that's unclean, and yet you eat it. This is one of the main points about religion. They all make crazy claims. It's just that you're happy with your set of crazy claims.
Just some of the craziest things that I've ever heard have really come out of Islam. And it's because people don't really know this stuff about Islam that they get sucked into it.
And what about the Bible's crazy claims? Like turning water into wine? Like feeding 5,000 people from a couple of loaves of bread and a few fish? Like the dead being raised? Like Moses waving his stick and parting the Red Sea? What about the entire world being drowned in a flood a few thousand years ago, just leaving Noah's family? Incidentally, after that, they could play that new game called Incest, the game for all the family. You see, there's an awful lot of crazy in your Bible.
If they knew better, if they actually researched what they're getting into, they would know that it's false and not to get involved with such a crazy religion.
Yes, but unfortunately, many people don't do much research into Christianity before taking that plunge.
And they need to be aware of what the founder of Islam was all about. Not only did he molest children, not only did he bully elderly women, he encouraged men to strike their wives if they would not submit to them. In the Quran, it clearly states, "But those wives from whom you fear arrogance, first advise them, then if they persist, forsake them in bed, and finally, strike them."
Oh, you really didn't want to go there, Matt. Exodus 21, 20-21. "When a man strikes his slave, male or female, with a rod, and the slave dies under his hand, he shall be avenged. But if the slave survives a day or two, he is not to be avenged, for the slave is his money." Or how about Proverbs 23, 13-14? "Do not withhold discipline from a child. If you strike him with a rod, he will not die. If you strike him with the rod, you will save his soul from Sheol." Nice. And how about this bit of biblical advice to you then, Matt? "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone."
We're supposed to honor our wives, not beat them and physically assault them. I mean, that is just terrible, terrible things that Muhammad did.
So the Quran saying beat your wives is bad, but the Bible saying beat your slaves and beat your children is good. Got that? I can hear you getting ready to say, but that was the Old Testament. Yeah, don't forget, your 10 Commandments are in the Old Testament as well, and you wouldn't want to be cherry picking now, would you, my love? I can also hear you saying, yes, but that was a long time ago and things were different then. Yeah, perhaps a bit like it was in Muhammad's time, with very, very young ages of marriage. Let me just be clear here, Matt. I am not in any way defending Islam. I am attacking your arguments, and your arguments are a steaming pile of fetid dingoes' kidneys. Hit like, hit subscribe. See you next time.
Grrr.